So, Comrade Timpool, fellow friend of the Russian Federation, receiver of true foreign dark money for pushing the politics that he does, has been going strong on YouTube despite his, being a puppet of the Russian government. And recently, he had a pretty liberal, left-leaning content creator on his show to debate on a variety of topics. Now, I've always said that I'm genuinely kind of impressed with Timpool. I've never seen such a competent right-wing debater. I think he's better at it than Ben Shapiro. I think he's better at rhetoric than Ben Shapiro or any of those other grifters by a mile. And critically, it's because of the kind of style that Timpool goes for, if that makes sense. He is constantly covering news. That's all he does. His whole brand is simply, exclusively news coverage with a tinge of drama and then debates. And critically, what this means is that he is constantly going over a feed of right-wing news stories, anecdotal talking points and narratives that are being specifically fed to him to cover. And he's no doubt committing a fair amount of it to memory, which means he is a grab bag, essentially, of right-wing talking points, anecdotes, and stories that, on their own, and when presented the right way, can be a really compelling attack against an entire ideology, despite that not really being a proper way to think about ideologies. And so Timpool is just a really slimy and effective debater. Yes, he does claim to be liberal, but, he is obviously fully in favor of Trump at all times, has always defended him, and has never criticized him. And so he brought on this liberal YouTuber, as he calls him, to debate on whether the National Guard troops being deployed in D.C., now it's looking like it's going to be Chicago as well, and maybe Baltimore, if that's fascism. And supposedly the title is Liberal YouTuber Roasted for saying National Guard troops are murder machines. That's right, this is about as hostile as a platform as you can go on. When conservatives still do debates with liberals and progressives, they don't even do the veneer of respectability anymore. They're very happy that they are the top dogs these days, and they revel in it, let me tell you. So let's check out this debate. I'm curious to see how it goes. Let's watch. By the way, you might want to grab like a wooden spoon to bite on. The cringe can get really bad, and you don't want to bite through your tongue.
The military is suited for regular civilian deployments because I think that they're essentially, they have a lot of different interests. I think they're very honorable, but they're murder machines. They're trained to be killers.
That's not correct.
They're
combat infantry.
People like the regulars in the military. They're trained to kill. They're not trained in the same.
Hold on. The National Guard are absolute. Is Tim confusing the National Guard with the Coast Guard? Is that what's happening? Because the National Guard are absolutely troops meant to be deployed. Murder machines is, just a dehumanizing way to refer to any of our troops. I'd say the closest you could refer to, the only, people in our military I think you could refer to as murder machines are snipers and DevGru. In that case, it's yeah, alright, SEAL Team 6, they're kind of murder machines, low-key. They do some fucked up shit. Besides that, though, let's not do the whole... I don't like this argument from him. He kind of set himself up to be embarrassed here with the dehumanizing of troops. What I would argue is their presence is not conducive with the land of the free thing that America is kind of completely about and all that, you know what I mean? 99% of the Guard's reason is presence and backup. They're literally the National Guard. Their goal is if America ever suddenly got invaded on land or there was a terrorist uprising in a city, the National Guard would get deployed because they're the military force we have stationed in America, within America's borders, ready to respond when shit gets crazy, if aliens invaded, the National Guard will be the first people to show up besides the cops. They're line 2 of defense. You got police, then you got the National Guard, and then the proper military shows up. That's typically how I understand it.
same way that we train our civilian law enforcement.
Well, I say proper military. I mean like the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force. Like they're all getting deployed. The Army infantry, Army paratroopers.
I knew who did IT work for the military wasn't a killer.
No, you know what I'm talking
He was
about.
physically fit. Let's be real. They do PT.
No, I understand.
They're being trained. They are being trained for combat.
Yeah, they're
scenarios.
trained for
They're
force.
They're being trained to.
And
they're
this
not
is a
being trained-
situation where force is required. That doesn't mean that they're unhinged or.
I'm not saying no. I'm literally. I just want to make sure.
I got to clarify this.
Like, isn't it wild how we've gone from we need to fund the police more to we need to deploy the National Guard to maintain the peace more? By the way, thank you for your service, Mr. Popo. It's wild how many people who are like ex-servicemen and servicewomen watch my content. You'd think, I mean, it makes sense, but also like, I'm not exactly the archetype of, you know, person who served our country. And so I'd imagine that the average person who has gone through that kind of stuff, or even just going through boot camp, would, I don't know, look down on someone like me in some way, some wimp-ass civvy, you know what I mean? But I guess I misunderstand the mindset of many veterans.
What percentage of the military do you think are actually combat infantry?
I'm not sure. It doesn't matter because the people who are being deployed are combat infantry right now.
That's fair. They're not going to deploy the IT guy on the street corner, right?
Okay, so let's just clarify when you're like, the army itself is.
The people who are being deployed, the regulars who are being deployed right now.
They're combat.
They're combat people. I'm not saying that they're mindless machines. I'm not saying that they're, but they have.
You said they're.
He did, and now he's gonna get caught for it. He set himself up for this. That line, oh my god, they based the title and thumbnail off that line. You gotta be careful, bro. I hate when lefties say fuck optics. I hate it. I really hate when lefties say fuck optics, fuck respectability politics. Yes, there's a time and a place where you can say fuck optics and have a little fun. You might get clipped and you might have to answer for it, but a situation like this is not the kind of place where you need to say fuck optics. Principles and standing by them loudly and proudly is all that matters. That's not how debates work. That's not how winning people over works either. Lefties have this idea that like being loud and proud about your positions and never wavering and never compromising is enough. You also have to be able to competently and optically be able to sell people on your worldview. And when I say sell people, I mean convince them. It's just my way of saying it.
Murder? Did you say murder machines?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Listen, I'm not saying
They have great.
Killing machines still would have been wrong. You went straight for murder machines.
They have greater trigger discipline than your average police officer.
I am not telling you that there's anything wrong with that, right?
Especially
I
female
want,
police
like
officers.
Kamala Harris said, I want our military to be the most lethal fighting force. Don't you?
You like Kamala Harris?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with you.
Can we not? She's way better than Trump. Way better than Trump.
Whoa!
Way better than Trump. Way better
Okay,
than
I'm
Trump.
He's
sorry,
been on the show multiple times.
The last hour, I've just disregarded everything.
Wait.
Whoa! You prefer Kamala Harris? We knew you were a liberal, man. We didn't know you were that bad.
I can't accuse you of being biased. I mean, that's impressive.
Can you just address it? Right. So you want, don't you, your combat infantry to be
Yes,
murder machines,
trained.
killing machines.
No,
Come on.
Don't say murder.
Okay.
Yes,
I
I
got
want
triggered by the word murder. You know what I'm talking
because
about.
it's not murder.
Triggered.
It's not murder. You're Mr. Technical over here using the right words.
You know what I'm
It's not
talking
murder.
about.
I'm gonna answer-
Killing machines. Do I want them to be highly trained and lethal?
Lethal. Yes.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. You understood what I was talking about.
I'm gonna
You
answer.
understood what I was talking about.
Okay. Let's answer the point.
Okay, yeah.
Answer the question.
They're not specialized
City.
for civilian law enforcement.
In New York City, do you know how? Do you remember when that?
I like how he has a skateboard with an iron cross on it that says uncancelable. Jesus Christ.
When the cops shot 7 random people.
No, I don't know.
All right, let me tell you this. Let me
What are
tell
you
you.
talking about? It's always some random fucking story with you.
You too. You're like, I met some guy who told me that the military should.
I'm trying to appeal the way that you do.
So in New York, a guy went to, I think it was the Empire State Building, and shot and killed people in his office who disgruntled.
Oh yes, I do remember that
He
actually.
walked out, and the NYPD ran up to stop him, and they fired, missed him, and hit 7 random people.
Hit 7 random people.
7 random people. I believe that number was 7.
Wow.
The argument that was
Good
presented,
Lord.
like this was a New York talking point. It was a big concern that needed to be rectified. Was
Come on, let's be real. Even novice non-police shooters know that the number 3 rules of handling firearms is you never put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot. You only point it in a safe direction at all times. And when you are going to shoot it, you know what is between you and your target, behind your target, and to the sides of your target. This is basic. Those are the 3 rules of safe firearm shooting that every American knows. So, like, that's not we need the National Guard because the cops just don't get it. It's like, yes, no doubt the National Guard are trained way better not to, like, muzzle sweep each other. And they're way better at, like, having a clean line of fire that's not going to, like, their buddy's not going to be their backstop, or a civilian's not going to be their backstop. They're going to know how to handle that shit better. They know tactical movements and things about how you position your body that just prevent you from flagging your friends, right? Like, cops need better training. This is actually part of putting more money into it. What the fuck, Xanderhall? There are 4 fundamental gun safety rules. Did I forget one? To be fair, I haven't taught anybody how to shoot in a while. Well, you always treat the gun like it's loaded as well. Is that the one I left out?
Is that the cost of the lawsuits for improper discharge and injury was less than the cost of training the NYPD. So it was actually it's your basic cost risk analysis, right? Remember that scene from Fight Club?
Capitalism for the win, huh?
It is. Remember the scene from Fight Club where Edward Norton's character is on the plane and he says, if a car is defective and it crashes and kills the people inside, and the company knows the cost of the lawsuit will be less than the cost of a recall, we don't recall. That's what happened in New York. They said, how come these cops couldn't shoot?
So this is a good example. Like, Timpool's a yapper. He just goes on about these stories that he's covered on his show. He's, got his whole narrative. I see he's got what appears to be 2 tablets in front of him. And something you'll notice is, as far as I'm aware, none of his guests are disallowed to bring something like a phone or a laptop or a tablet with which they can tippity tap away and like fact check things in real time. It's not against the rules in his show, as far as I'm aware. I don't think it's against the rules. But people, for some reason, don't do it. That is not Timpool's fault. It is a failing of the people that come onto his show. Barring a few examples, I think Vosh might have done it, and I think Destiny did. 2 people who, of course, would have the wherewithal to say, fuck, this guy's advantage is he's got a list of talking points. You got to be able to live debunk these talking points, because they're going to be shit you've possibly never heard of. Because that Irina Zarutska story, and many others, until Trump got into office, many of these stories, and still many more, are very insulated to the right-wing sphere. If you're progressive, or even a progressive content creator, there's a good chance you've never heard these right-wing culture war narratives. You've never heard these nonsense stories that only ever circulated within their news circles. Because you just didn't hear about it. You didn't focus on it. It wasn't like, it didn't catch your eye because it's not something you'd believe or care about. But for them, they take advantage of the fact you've never heard of a lot of these points before, and they steamroll you on it, and they yap over you. You gotta bring your own device so you can fact check these fuckers. If he brings up an example, say, hold on, Tim. Not that I don't believe you, but that topic, that's so curious. I'd never heard that before, Tim. You just taught me something new. I'm gonna Google that really fast because I would like to learn more. Would you mind if I have a moment? You don't have to play it like you're gonna say, hold on a moment, I'm gonna fact check that. You can play it off totally cool. Say, that's so interesting. I've never heard that. Hold on, let me look into that. I want to learn more about this. Give me a moment. And then quickly tap away on it. And if the information that comes up blatantly debunks what Timpool has said, or whatever conservative you're debating has said, then you can say, hold on a moment. What I'm seeing here does not line up with what you said. Tim, did you lie to me? Because it's seeming like every reputable source says that this is actually a very commonly repeated lie. And, of course, that has been true of many of Timpool's claims on his show. So, that's what you gotta do. That's how you beat Timpool in a debate. I've thought this for years. I've said this for years.
Shoot. And they said, well, to be honest, comprehensive firearm training is more expensive than the lawsuits we have to pay out when they shoot innocent people.
Who said that?
That is not true. That is definitely not true. Comprehensive firearm... Okay, well, comprehensive? Maybe. Basic firearm training would not be more expensive. That I can promise you. It is not expensive to get, a basic, beginner's firearm lesson. It's not expensive. It's not cheap, but it's not, something the state can't afford. You know what I mean? Hold on a moment. I could have sworn... don't point the gun at anything you don't want to destroy. Wait a second. Did you not hear me say always point the gun in a safe direction? That is literally that rule. Anyway, that said, though, hold on a moment. I swear to God, Timpool, there was this particular lie he told. I'm trying to remember it now. what was it? He'd said this thing that was just such a blatant falsehood, and I was like, God, I wish I was on his show so I could correct him. It was like a year and a half ago, and I remember I like crashed out, like straight up crashed out in that segment because I so badly wanted to be on the show to correct him. I cannot remember what it was for the life of me though. Real quick pause on the video though, just to say, if you're enjoying this and you want to support the content, consider leaving a like, a comment, subscribe, and more importantly than all those things, supposedly, I don't know, it's a new feature with YouTube, so we're going to have a little bit of an experiment. Consider hitting the hype button. Should be down below in the description, or like when you try to leave a comment, it might show up. I don't know. It doesn't show on my end, which is really weird. So try it out. I think it's when you comment. Try hyping the video. It also helps a ton. Subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. And let's get back to it. Thank you, folks.
This was the basic.
Did anyone say that?
Yes,
Okay.
but I want to be careful here because I don't want to ascribe something to somebody who's going to sue me later for obvious reasons. The general conversation among politicians was the NYPD, or I should say the debate politically in the cultural space was the NYPD isn't doing these trainings because it's more expensive than paying lawsuits. They're not going to publicly admit at the highest levels, but that was the internal, like, everybody kind of knows it's $50 million a year in lawsuits versus $100 million for training. So what we end up seeing is, I will say this, I would rather have a military trained individual who later becomes a cop than a short, fat guy with no training.
That's not what we're talking about. Yeah, if a military person...
When you say they're killing machines or
but
murder
you
machines...
know what I'm talking about, dude. You guys are
Let
soying
me finish my
out.
point.
You've been Mr. Technical this whole time.
I'm going to finish my point. A former military, I'm not talking about military because I'm trying to make the point. Former military police who have military and police training
Great.
are safer and better at their jobs than somebody who just grew up in the area and got limited police training.
Okay.
So what they're going to try to do is argue we need military police. This is how we get to Starship Troopers Society, by the way, where it's like you have to have like served in the military to be like eligible for like a ridiculous amount of like jobs that you really shouldn't be relegating to only people who've been part of a certain, let's call it, organization. Like that is a weird, like definitely like SS fasci vibe thing that Tim's pulling for there. Not gonna lie.
Okay.
Therefore, the point is there's more discipline and better training among military personnel than local police.
Do you...
Your argument misses that point.
Okay, bring up the Declaration of Independence. Can you do this? Can you bring up the Declaration of Independence? I would love for you to do that. But
I don't know what that is.
I assume we're bringing up the Fifth Amendment.
Men are created equal.
No, I'm not going to
What
put
do you
that.
have to do with the
Asterisks. Freeborn, white
We're
Christian
talking about the
Englishman.
policy.
That is the context.
I did not say that former military people
That
should
is
not
true
be
because they didn't mean
cops.
black people.
No, yeah. People say, oh, they weren't living up to their ideals. That was actually the specific application of their ideal at the time.
We disagree with it now, for sure.
Scroll down real quick. Down, until they listen out. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. One of the main complaints, central theses of the founding generation was that having standing armies mixed in with civilian enforcement is dangerous.
Without consent.
This is true, and without consent. Yes, many of these cities do not consent to it. Excuse me. That's how it works. Also, yes, this was very much the case. During these times, the police force were standing armies. When the United States were just 13 colonies, when you walked the street, if there was a crime, it would be responded to by like a squadron of standing guard redcoat soldiers, like British soldiers. In some parts, they would have been like French soldiers up in like Canada. And that was how law enforcement was done, which was obviously a very problematic system when the colonies started to have political unrest, and now you had British soldiers enforcing the peace. That's a scary thing. That was a large part of why we made America.
You cited, didn't you?
This is a good point. He's made a good point here.
Consent.
Rome. Okay, you cited Rome. One of the big dangers and why standing armies might be bad and deleterious to domestic liberty is that someone might use that domestic military to usurp our Republican form of government. And so these are genuine policy reasons why we don't want to have standing armies.
Yeah, we don't
among
want
our
the
police
standing
force.
army to usurp our Republican form of government. The problem that we have right now is that the people, our citizens themselves, and a bunch of people who aren't citizens, have usurped that Republican form of government. So, like, this is like going into a house that's on fire with...
We've been usurped. All right.
Or a house that's flooded with a fire extinguisher. right? It's the wrong solution. That you have to
How? Don't bother asking how. It's just meant to get claps and cheers from the brain-rotted, smooth fucks watching this.
look at the context. When we have the founders, they're looking at England, and there is religious persecution, right? The king at the time was forcing ministers to read from the Sports Almanac on the Lord's Day in their church service, which violated their consciences because you got a bunch of Protestant Puritans, those kinds of things. You had tyranny, you had civil tyranny, you had ecclesiastical
This dude's just fucking yapping about shit that has nothing to do with the point.
tyranny. And so they're coming from that, and they're coming from that with people who are homogenous, people who have the same convictions, they have the same ethnic background. And so in that context,
So
they're
this
saying
doesn't apply
our
anymore.
fear, listen, they're saying our fear is government overreach. And even with the First Amendment, our fear is religious overreach. When the First Amendment was not, to think that the First Amendment was written, they're like, you know what, we're really hoping one day that this will protect Muslims.
Well,
That's insane.
Who is paying that man? Russia. I love how this guy's trying so hard to, like, be Matt Walsh. You can see it, right? Like he's really, like he said, okay, so I guess if I'm going to be a conservative guy, like, all I can really pull off is the Matt Walsh. His look works, so I guess I'll do that. Same glasses, same beard, same hairstyle. APAC payroll? Probably not APAC, probably Russia. I think all these people are getting paid by the Kremlin.
I just want to say one. I
insane.
consent. As a Chicago native, and I know I don't speak for literally everyone in Chicago, I can tell you that my friends and my homies, they work here. They're from my neighborhood.
Wait, that's not Matt Walsh? That is not Matt Walsh, no.
majority don't though.
That's actually Matt Venom Walsh, believe it or not.
That's not correct.
You think the majority
Punished Venom Walsh.
in DC
The
don't?
majority of who?
So
Majority of the people.
my neighborhood in
What
Chicago,
people?
my
People of Chicago, people of DC.
my Democrat neighborhood in Chicago is now
He's
a
the
Trump
man
supporting
who
red
sold the
neighborhood.
world.
And
Who asked? Okay,
so I'm
talking
making
about
this
the
point.
city.
So I am saying this. For my neighborhood, where we do agree and did vote for Trump, we consent to Trump deploying to that neighborhood specifically. And I do not believe it's fair that Pritzker, the governor, infringe upon our rights as a community to request federal assistance only in our neighborhood.
Well, the city officials also don't want it. The
My
Chicago
neighborhood
city-
does. Does my neighborhood have a right to say?
No,
"Please help us"?
no. They have a vote. They have a say in whatever count. Listen, I don't know how the Chicago city government is run. You probably know more than I do. But you have representation, and overwhelmingly the city of Chicago, the city of LA, the city of DC, they don't want this deployment there.
Let me
You
ask
know
you.
that.
Let me ask you. If Illinois, as a jurisdiction, says, "Do not deploy," we refuse. Trump should not do it.
Okay.
Right? You agree? You would agree with that?
Well,
The state saying, "Don't come here. You don't have a right."
in this specific context, yes.
At what point do individuals lose the right? Lose their rights to a superior form of government?
Well, I don't know. Are we entertaining hypotheticals?
At what point do individuals lose their right to a superior form of government? We're really just throwing all the states' rights stuff out of the trash and finding any mental gymnastics and rhetorical gymnastics we can use to, like, distract from the blatant hypocrisy, to be like, okay, well, when you really think about it, because Trump is just so great and perfect and his government is so superior, in a way, these states are being tyrannical by depriving their citizens of the superior government. That is the federal government under Trump. These guys are just glazing this orange, wrinkly, micro-penised fuck. Never forget, Trump is a pedophile with a small penis. Take me to court if you're mad about it, Trump.
Goes at this point because you seem pretty resistant to it earlier.
It's not. So my point is quite literally, my neighborhood turned red and voted for Trump. This was in 2012. It was blue, Democrat voting, and then in 2016 it was blue. In 2020 it was a little red, and in 2024 it turned red and voted for Trump. Why should this particular isolated community that has a shared worldview, when they say we actually would like the National Guard to come here to stop the violence, why should the city of Chicago, who don't live there and don't agree, be able to enforce their will and allow the crime to continue?
Because the overall levels of sovereignty are like the municipal, the state,
So
and then the federal. So I mean,
tyranny is okay in some degrees.
I don't know what you
It is not tyranny. It is These people love to call democracy. They love to call our country, which is a republic, but we also operate through a democracy, a representative democracy. They love to call it like tyrannical, but the president being a dictator using unilateral executive order to do things that used to require congressional approval, which is the closest form of direct democracy we have in the federal government. Somehow that's not tyranny. That's actually letting him do everything is the opposite of tyranny. States having any way of resisting federal power is the opposite of tyranny. These people spent, and still to this day argue, That the federal government trying to eliminate slavery was tyranny, mind you. Jesus Christ.
What you mean by tyranny? You have representation.
So
in
let's
that local district, that local council,
forget.
and all.
Let's try that. Okay, let's forget.
Oh, and if you're curious, by the way, a large part of this same debate, a different clip uploaded to the channel, which we're not going to watch this time, is timpool arguing and supposedly destroying him on why January 6th was not an insurrection.
All of the country and isolate only the borders of Chicago.
Okay.
There is one neighborhood. They have an alderman. That's what the local politicians are called.
Sure.
It has specific boundaries. And in this jurisdiction, they say crime has gotten out of hand. Our government has abandoned us and we need help. But the city of Chicago says you're not going to get it and we will keep anyone who tries from coming to your neighbor to save you. Is that tyranny?
I love how performative he is. Like, have you seen, like just look at the way he talks here. Just look at his body language and his, like, vocal range. Look how performative he's being. Like, he wants to get claps.
You have representation.
So let's
He's clip farming so hard.
Local district, local council, and all.
Pay attention to the way he talks.
Let's forget all of the country and isolate only the borders of Chicago.
Okay.
There is one neighborhood. They have an alderman. That's what the local politicians are called.
Sure.
It has specific boundaries. And in this jurisdiction, they say crime has gotten out of hand. Our government has abandoned us and we need help. But the city of Chicago says you're not going to get it and we will keep anyone who tries from coming to your neighbor to save you. Is that tyranny?
Is the overall sovereign.
It's like he's trying so hard. It's like the way you talk about something when you're really trying to, like, heap on the emotional response, like to get people angry. Like, they're not only doing this, but then they're doing this, and they're saying you can't do this. Like, he's actively baiting, and like everything about his rhetoric and the way he presents himself and his brand is all about baiting out an emotional response from people who think that logic guides their politics, but are actually the most emotional of anyone.
Sovereign is the city of Chicago in that case. That's the sovereign.
So people should suffer if the sovereign determines it.
Well, yeah, but your voice is not forgotten in that context because that alderman is representing his constituencies. He just doesn't command a majority in the city. The city is the sovereign. And
but we're not asking for employment to the rest of the city.
Everything that you do, Tim, is you're basically doing this kind of continuum fallacy thing.
Stop being so obtuse.
Where does the puddle?
Honestly, what he should have done when he said stop being so obtuse is the Family Guy bit. He should have leaned back in the chair, put his arms up and his legs up on the table, and turned his body into an obtuse angle. Like greater than 90 degrees, less than 180 degrees, which would be a flat line. That would have been really, really funny. Or if he really wanted to do it crazy, he could go less than 90 degrees, and he could say, "Oh, I thought I was being acute." Yeah, just do the full bit.
Where does a puddle become a lake? Come on,
the King of England.
So the city of
you're pretending to be stupid
the city
intentionally.
of Chicago is the sovereign.
You're pretending to be stupid intentionally when I'm literally taking your argument and applying it to Chicago, and you refuse to accept it because you know you're wrong.
No, I'm not
Let
wrong.
me say it again.
I'm not wrong.
When you cite the King of England as violating the rights of the colonies because the colonies is a jurisdiction under the crown, you say we have the right to oppose.
Look how fucking like he's trying so hard. He's so performative. But, like, I gotta say, I think if I'm not mistaken, and this might not be true, he's not triggered. No. He's performative. He's putting on a show. Never forget, this is meant to look passionate and empowered. Like, I promise you, if we could see the live, like, feed of super chats, they're flowing in like a river. The louder and more angry he comes off. He's clip farming right now. He's trying to get Yas Queens, or I guess the right-wing male equivalent of Yas Queens from his audience. You know how, he's baiting donos right now, literally. Why do people go on his show? Because he is one of the largest political voices on the planet. I don't know if you guys know this. At least it might not be true post the stuff coming out about him taking money from Russia. But prior to that, timpool was, across all of his channels, the most watched political figure on the internet. You guys know that, right? Like, literally #1 in all of politics, timpool. That's why people go on his show and try to debate him. He's really good at this, though, so they never come out looking good. He always farms them.
The king. When I say a single neighborhood in Chicago says no to the mayor, you said the mayor can tell them what they can or can't do because they don't have the right.
If you go back to the Declaration of Independence, what was the other big issue with the system in the colonies is they didn't have representation. They didn't have representation in the parliament. They didn't have any say whatsoever. That's not the same in the situation that you presented, where you have local governance and you have local governance in right next to you. It's not like you're across an ocean.
My neighborhood does not have representation at the city.
Let me finish. You do. You fucking do. Obviously, you do.
No.
You're saying the alderman doesn't have any say whatsoever
at the state level.
Okay. at the state level,
There is an over-encompassing jurisdiction that engulfs my neighborhood.
that's how we've set up our system. Our system is,
And that's how the crowd set up theirs.
Hang on a second.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War.
Yeah, gotta love the editing there. I'm sure that didn't cut off before maybe a response was made by the dude. Anyway, yeah, this shit is slop, but God, it does pull views and it does do well, must say. This dude has a lot of sympathy for criminals while taking issue with stopping crime. Whoever that liberal is, he sounds like Sister at Thanksgiving, all emotion. By the way, one thing I will say is I've forgotten that guy's name. I think it's Pisco, right? Pisco, I think his name is. I think he's friends with Destiny, if I'm not mistaken. I think I've heard of him like around that circle. Okay, this is straight up bullshit. I was in the National Guard and was deployed during George Floyd's riots. I'm a 25B, an IT guy, who was sent in to help defend police stations. We didn't have guns. We just had shin guards, riot shields, and batons. That's it. Not there to kill anyone. It's insane to think someone thinks we are there as combat folks who is going to murder people in the streets. Again, the unit that was deployed was 81st HB CTs 161 and 303 units, which was infantry and cavalry units. But they had their S3, S2, S1, and S6 shop guys also doing the work as well. You probably understood all of that, Mr. Popo, way better than I do. Same grouping I had. I see. Yeah, I'm not saying they're there to kill people or anything, but Trump's deploying them as a political power move. It's meant to be scary. It's meant to destabilize these cities and make them afraid of Trump. It's meant to make these politicians feel that, like, if the one thing these, like, mayors have to do to get Trump to let up on all this shit is to be friendly with him, they're going to be worried that they're going to lose their position and they're going to lose their elections because the people are going to not turn against Trump, they're going to turn against them. Because Trump will be seen as a constant, as like a force of nature, and how you respond to Trump will be what determines whether or not you lose elections in the future. That's a scary thought. So I can see how Trump is strategizing that way, if that makes sense. Gotcha, Mr. Popo. Gotcha. It's always good to have a subject matter expert in chat with topics like this, isn't it? Thank you for being here, Mr. Popo, and thanks for your help on this topic. A little bit of shout out to you for the future people watching. You get a little bit of spotlight on you. Anyway, folks, don't call me expert, please, but you're welcome. Hey, compared to me, compared to me, you're an expert, okay? Way more than I am. Anyway, folks, if you enjoyed this video, if you found it entertaining, educational, or enjoyable, like I said before, leave a like, a comment, and a hype. It really does help a lot, and I appreciate it a ton. Thank y'all so much for that. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon if you haven't already. Turn on all notifications so YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload a new video. And of course, if you want to see more from me in the future, follow my social medias, link down below so you can get notified when I go live or upload through my Discord. I also host weekly gaming events, call-in streams, watch parties, and movie nights there every Friday. So if you don't want to miss a thing, that's the place to join. Finally, if you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub to someone else on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some custom Streamlabs merch or my Xander Hall merch to the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, have a good one.